What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. Still pretty toasty around here.
Hey, I thought it felt a lot better.
It does. We're waiting on maybe a little rain today, so we got a little bit of breeze, but still pretty warm. And this video is going to be the start of, I think, a 3-video series.
Right. Unless there's like a lot more questions or something like that.
Right. We could always add more, but currently I have in mind this being kind of a 3-video series, and it's not going to be boom, boom, boom. We'll probably do one per week.
Yep.
Because we want to be able to show you guys what we're doing in the garden. But since we started the channel, I've had kind of this idea, and to do it this time of year when the garden's a little slower before fall planting really picks up, is to do a little video series on our market farming operation we used to do.
Right. Where
we used to sell our produce and kind of the model we used, all the nuts and bolts of it. Because I think it works really well. Oh, look at there.
So popular.
That's probably somebody wanting to sell me an extended warranty on my vehicle.
That you sold 6 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so we want to do a little series on our market farming operation we had when we were selling our produce, because I think that particular model works really good for people who are like us, who maybe work full-time jobs, who are not doing the farming thing full-time, but maybe want a little extra supplemental income, or you just have extra vegetables that you don't want them to go to waste.
Yeah.
So we're going to break this up into at least 3 videos, and the first video we're going to just talk about our model. We call it the bag model. I guess we could
probably find a fancier name for it. We haven't looked for one.
We could have come up with a better name, but that's just what we'll call it.
I think you should call it like a surprise bag model.
Surprise bag.
You don't get to pick what was in the bag, so we'll get to that in a second. Go ahead, sorry.
And this is maybe kind of weird to some folks. If why are you sitting here preaching, saying how this model works so good, but you're not doing it anymore? Well, we did it for about 4 or 5 years.
It wasn't that long.
Maybe 3 or 4 years.
3.5 going on 4. We ended at the end of our 4th season.
We ended it, I think, around June of last year.
Right.
And we didn't stop it because it wasn't successful.
Right, it was very successful.
We just got to the point where the kids got a little older. We wanted the weekends back. It was the harvesting and stuff was pretty demanding of my time on the weekends, and we had a good deal present itself on our pop-up camper, and we said,
hey, we about to go.
Let's just let's stop selling veggies. Let's buy this pop-up camper, and let's start hitting the road more and having a little more fun.
I wasn't actually sold on us stopping, because I hate to say this, I'd sort of been asking, I'm like, Trav, I think we gotta stop something. You know, sometimes when your life gets so jam-packed and every second, it's like, God didn't mean for us to be this busy. You know, like something's gotta give, and what is it that's got to give? Well, it can't be our full-time jobs, and it can't be what is the one thing we could give up and still live? And so, I'd probably talked to you about it quite a few times, but then when you finally told me, I'm ready to give it up, I was like, wait, no, not yet. Are you sure? Are you sure?
We had a lot of loyal customers that were expecting stuff.
Man, weekly, I have people tell me, Brooklyn, please tell me when you're going to sell it again. Please tell me, I'll come out there. I said, I'll give it to you. We're not going to sell it, but I'll be happy to give it to you. But we'll get to it in a second, but it was a wonderful learning process for us. It provided income supplemental income when we needed it, and then when it was no longer fun or really necessary anymore, it was best for our family to stop. Now, if I didn't work, we would be doing it still.
Right.
I think in a heartbeat. I mean, the kids are older now, and there was a need for it. You wouldn't think thered be such a need for it here, but there was a need.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to what you were saying.
And the reason we started doing it primarily is, so if you watch the videos, you know we've got 10 garden plots. They're all decent size. So we've got 10 times what most people have in a backyard garden around here.
And you have an extreme need to grow a whole lot more than anybody needs.
Yeah, and so I like to grow a lot. I like to have all these different plots mainly for the purpose of content, creating videos. I can show you guys a lot wider range of things I can show you how they perform better if they've got their own plot. So I've always had a big garden, all these plots for content purposes. And with that, you have a lot of extra produce.
Yeah.
We had trouble giving it away the first
You'd be surprised.
year
I don't
or
know why
so.
that was trouble, but
Yeah.
it was
difficult.
Yeah.
So we said, well, we'll figure out a model where we can sell this stuff. So our bag model that we had, why did we choose this particular model? One, there's not really any farmers markets around here.
No, the closest one is an hour away, and I don't know that it's done every Saturday. I think it's only done once a month.
You talking about the
possibly.
one in Tifton?
Yeah.
And
Or another one's an hour and a half away.
right.
Tallahassee always has one that I think a lot of people go to, but
And with those farmers markets, there's not a lot of strict rules that say you can only be selling stuff there if you grew it. So you got a lot of resellers in there that are going
down to Florida, you get tomatoes.
Yeah, going to a big commercial farmer, buying stuff and coming and reselling it. And I didn't really want to, you know, if I was going to be a part of a farmer's market, I'd want to be one where it was all people who were growing their own stuff.
But not just that, it's hard for me to sell you an heirloom tomato for $5 for 2 of them when this guy's selling 10 tomatoes for $5.
That's right.
People
That's right.
aren't seeing the value in
It kind of cheapens
it.
the produce in
Right.
the whole market.
Yes.
That's a whole nother.
But that's why we chose not to do it.
Right. So there's not a lot of farmers markets around here. So that left us with something similar to like a CSA model.
Which I had never heard of until you introduced me to that.
Yeah. But my problem with the CSA thing was always this, and maybe it's just me.
People may not know what that is. I think you need
Yeah,
to tell.
CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And the model was kind of founded on the idea that at the beginning of the season, you sell shares for your produce or whatever. You could buy a half
I didn't know it
share
did that.
or a whole share.
It's almost like people buying a whole cow.
Right. And that share would mean maybe every week you got an assortment of vegetables, maybe every month, whatever. If you got a half share, you get half the amount. A full share, you get full the amount. But the way that model was designed was you paid up front, and that money helped fund that particular farm, help them buy seeds, fertilizers, pay for their labor and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then they delivered to you throughout those months for which that share was allocated. But the contingency part of that was
You have to have a crop.
it was on kind of this grace thing. So if for some reason you didn't have any vegetables that week, that was part of the deal. You know, you didn't get anything. On the other hand, if they had extra, they would probably give you extra. But I never really was a huge fan of the whole getting the money up front. I didn't feel comfortable getting a bunch of people's money up front. And what if I have some crop failures? What if I can't deliver on that? I would feel indebted to those people.
Right. It's also an organizational and accounting nightmare, I think. And a lot of people they don't want to pay you $200 up front. It is a lot easier to swallow. We sold our bags at the beginning, which I think was way too cheap, $20 a bag. That's a lot easier for somebody to try whenever they're not totally sold in on organic or they're not sold in on what we're selling. So it's like trying to convince somebody to buy this really, I don't know, it's just like when you're not already all bought into that type of lifestyle and you don't understand that there's a more expensive price because of all the stuff that goes into it, then it was easier to get those customers who weren't all sold in. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
I think so.
I don't know if I did, but I'm just saying it was easier to acquire customers at $20 a pop rather than me saying, we have these really great vegetables, it's $200, and then we may or may not have vegetables.
Right.
So that didn't work for us.
Yeah, to sell the full share.
Right.
The other problem with that, selling the shares at the beginning of the season, for me, it was really hard to predict week by week how much stuff I was going to. So I wouldn't have known how many shares to sell based on what I was going to have available. So it was kind of like a CSA, but not really, because we didn't take the money up front. It was a week to week deal. We had some customers that would buy every week. Some would buy once every 2 weeks. Some would buy once a month. Some would try it one time and be good.
And then not try it again.
Yeah.
And some of that had to do with my pickup times, which we'll get into all of that later. As Travis already said, we're going to do 3 series of these. I don't think you mentioned what the second and third video would be. But if we don't mention on this video, it's because we're going to talk about it in a later video.
Yeah.
So there was just another thing with it is that at the time we started this is when all these subscription services were coming out. And we thought, listen, this would be a great idea. There's like no commitment. If we have it, we're going to post it. If we don't, we don't. So that's sort of where we went to. And then I had a lot of people say, well, how'd y'all come up with that price? And whenever we were doing this, people get really in the weeds of, well, how much do you know how to put in there? And how much did you know to charge for it? Listen, I'm big on, did you think you got your money's worth? Because that's what it was to me. Does this feel like $20 worth? Yes, it did. So we were never putting 2 cucumbers in there and 1 squash. We were putting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cucumbers in there, 5 or 6 squash. We wanted you to feel like, I got a lot of produce in here for what I have. So that's sort of what we did. We didn't weigh anything because that would take forever.
Right. And the reason we did multiple items, because Rick was either delivering this stuff or she would create a centralized pickup location and a time slot where people come pick it up. And if you're doing that, selling things individually, a pound or so of okra or a few squash at $3 or $4 or $5 a pop, it's a lot of communication going on.
Too much.
A lot of networking,
right,
just to make a little bit of money.
Right.
So when you're delivering or when you're doing pickup, you really need to be getting $20 to $30 per customer per pop, because you're just going to wear you thin real quick doing delivery on single item stuff.
Yeah.
So we didn't do single item stuff. And we had a couple people ask, could they just buy this one item? It's like, nope, got to buy the whole bag, because it just wasn't, the time didn't work out for us.
Right.
We couldn't recoup our time invested in it if we're selling things at $5 a pop. We had to sell $25 worth of vegetables in a bag. And
unfortunately, you sort of have to have those hard line boundaries. Like, I really want to be a people pleaser, and I was like, Travis, can we? And he's like, no. And then I got to the point, no, I'm sorry. I've already had to spend 10 minutes going back and forth with you about, can I sell you a bag of cucumbers? You know, I've already lost that money. At this point, time is money. It's almost like you moms who resell stuff on Facebook. It is not worth it to sell that $2 shirt to one girl to then try to have to meet her up to get your kid's $2 shirt.
Right.
You know, it's like, I'll just give you everything for $2 rather than have to sell you one $2 shirt. So that's sort of where we were on this.
So we've talked about this bag model, and we'll kind of get into what it looked like, because I don't have a lot of stuff right now that we could
maybe we can post old pictures.
Made up a bag.
Yeah.
But I kind of go over some of the packaging and stuff we use. So we would put all the items in these little brown bags here. You can get these off Amazon. I think they're a little cheaper off Uline or like a big supply place. I think that I ended up ordering them off Uline. This size here worked for us, which is about I think 12 inches tall, 18 inches wide. We can usually fit all 5 items in here. So these are the bags we went with, nice little handles on them, and then we put our sticker
we had
on
a
top
brand.
of them. Now inside these bags, we would use these things right here for the individual vegetables, and we still use these bags excuse me, even though we're not market farming, because they're so handy. So these are just like what you get at the grocery store, but they're a little bit bigger, and this worked perfect for almost any vegetable we had, whether it was something dry that I was pulling off the rack in the barn or something in the fridge. You know, if it had to be cold, I'd harvest it, make sure it was dry, put it in here, poke a few holes in it, tie a knot, throw it in the fridge, and we have it ready to go. I'll put a link below, an Amazon link to these. You got to buy, I think, 4 rolls at a time of them, which will last you a long time, but it's so much cheaper than using Ziploc bags or anything else. And these things work really good for storing vegetables. They're thin, you get some good airflow with them. So this is what we use to put most individual things in. So I tear off a bag like this after I harvested my squash or cucumbers. You know, put 4 or 5 squash in here, put some taters in here.
Not in the same bag.
Not in the same bag. Every item had its own individual bag. We put cabbage in here. Some of the real big cabbage wouldn't quite fit in here, but most of them would. We put heads of lettuce in here, collards in here, broccoli, cauliflower, you name it, okra, peppers, tomatoes, all kind of stuff stores well in these bags right here. And
corn.
It made it easy for when the person got the bag, the big brown bag, you know, they could pull all these things out, put them in the fridge if they needed to. If it didn't need to be in the fridge, they could easily tear this up, put them in their pantry or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
So most everything went in these bags, but some stuff we used these little clamshells here. So for instance, mulberries. Early in the spring, our mulberry tree, you might have seen some videos on that, produces a lot. So we put mulberries in here. I think I bought these from a restaurant supply store or something online. I can't remember.
I thought you got them from Amazon.
Maybe I did get them from Amazon. I can't remember.
You got a ton of them.
But we still have a lot of them, and they're still handy. The kids like them for picking berries. So blackberries, mulberries, cherry tomatoes we put in here. Anything that was real small and kind of perishable that you wouldn't want to put in that sack, we would use these little clamshells for them.
We didn't necessarily use these in the bags, but we did go to a market stand one time. So I did have these.
Now, I use these for figs.
Oh, okay.
So we would also put figs in the bags when that time came, and also muscadines. Or we would use our muscadines and figs. And I had some of these. I had this size, which is a pint, and I had some quart size ones too. And we would use these for those. But
then you would stick it in a plastic bag, wouldn't you?
I would wrap it in the bag kind of tight so everything didn't spill.
That's right.
But these did work good. If somebody gets this and they have it, they can sit that in their fridge. So that's some of the kind of packaging we used for everything. And you dug into a little bit about how much to put in each bag.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of looked at it, because I packed up most of this stuff, was I wanted each item, each vegetable to be enough for a side dish for a family of 4. So if I'm putting potatoes in this bag here, I want enough potatoes for a family of 4 to have a meal.
So you're putting anywhere from 5, depending on the size, to 8 potatoes in there.
Right. Now, sometimes we would put more than that. If we're just loaded down with cucumbers.
Here, throw in another thing.
I'd fill them up with cucumbers or peppers or okra or whatever. I'd give them extra. But I at least wanted enough in there for a side dish for a family of 4.
Nothing. I think that's one reason our customers kept coming back, is when they would always say, "Yo, I got so much produce. This bag is packed full." Thank you. That is the #1 compliment to me. There's nothing that'll make me quit going to a restaurant quicker or ordering from somebody if I feel like I've been cheapened, or if they only give you a few chips, we ain't going back there.
That's right.
You know? So you want to feel like people know what your money's worth and how much they gave you. So we would frequently, like you said, give extra when we had extra. It was a nice surprise for people to get a little bit of extra in there. Yeah,
and with the cool season stuff, the stuff that's kind of like that makes heads. So I'd either give them 1 big head of cabbage or 2 little heads of cabbage. Same thing with broccoli. 1 big head of broccoli or 2 little heads. Lettuce, 1 real big head of lettuce. Basically whatever I could fit in this bag.
Yeah.
If it was a big head of lettuce that would barely fit in this bag,
that was all.
But if it was 2 little heads that would fit in this bag, that's kind of how I measured it out. And I don't think we ever had anybody complain that say they didn't hardly get anything. We always made sure we gave people plenty. We talked about the price.
Here, Titus.
Okay. So the price, we started out at $25 a bag. So it's 5 items per bag. So 5 different vegetables. So you have potatoes, squash, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, for instance. And it could vary from week to week. And
it did vary from week to week, and you really want to aim for that.
That was the beauty of our model. We weren't hamstrung. We didn't have to have the same thing. So it had 5 items per bag. We did $25 per bag for the first couple of years, and then we went to $30 per bag. Now, there were some weeks where the garden was just booming, and I had to get rid of some of this stuff, and we would do like a supersized bag and put 6 items in it.
Or 7.
For an extra $5 or whatever, and most people were pretty receptive to that idea.
The other thing is, whenever we listed it, we always listed more than 5 items. So we always had more items available than 5, but you would have a mix of 5 that was listed. You didn't get to pick them.
Right, and
Is
we'll
that
do
something
a whole video on the marketing aspect of it. But every Sunday, Brooklyn would post, okay, this week I've got 15 bags. I've got some weeks she'd have 20 bags. I'd tell her how many I could pack.
Yeah.
And it would have a list of items. That list could be 6 items long, it could be 10 items long. Because some things I didn't have 20 individual portions of. I only maybe had 10 individual portions of. But I maybe had 8 or 10 different items that I had
10 portions
of. So I kind of did the math and knew how many bags I could put together, and we didn't let people pick or choose. And I know some people are like, man, who would like that? But a lot of people just like the kind of surprise aspect of it. You always got something like, every now and then we'd have somebody say, I don't like onions or whatever, and we'd exclude onions or something if they said, I hate this, I don't want to eat it. But
you couldn't let somebody pick out their 5.
Right.
That never worked. It was a nightmare to pack them.
Yeah.
I mean, literally would take you so long.
If you had to custom pack each bag, it would take a long time, much longer. So that's why we didn't let people pick. You got 5.
Sell as much.
You got 5 of those items. And that was it.
Yep.
Why? I want to talk about why this particular model worked for us. And maybe there's a lot of you out there in the same situation. So we both have full-time jobs, still do. And we're not able to really go sit at a farmer's market in the middle of the week. You know, we have limited time on the weekends. We would
children.
we would harvest some stuff during the week, like cucumber, squash, things that got to be harvested every other day. But then, especially in the fall, on Saturday or Sunday, I would take 4 or 5 hours and I'd come out here and harvest everything. Collards, carrots, beets, broccoli, cabbage, whatever it was. I'd harvest everything for the week. I'd wash it if it needed washing. I'd bag it up. And then that Monday or Tuesday, Brooklyn would do delivery. So with our full-time working schedule, this worked really well. And Brooklyn works in a couple different towns around here, so we could have customers not just in our town, but in several different towns. And she could do pickups in different towns, and that's why it really worked for us.
Yeah, so it broadened our customer base, for one. And whenever we were doing this, Titus was little, so it wasn't like I could get out and help you and shorten them. I mean, he was like 1.5 years, and it was just he was just at that stage, you know, it was easier just for me to be inside than out here helping. Or we were doing it at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. So that was, anyway, I forgot where I was going with that, I'm sorry.
Sorry. And then the last thing I want to mention on this video is this particular model, this bag model, there were some crops that we couldn't really grow for the market farming aspect. And it was just mainly restricted by size. So we didn't really want to sell anything that couldn't fit within this bag, because Brooklyn had to haul these things to work, had
into
to
a courthouse. Into a courthouse. So it wasn't like I was dropping. I only did deliveries every now and then. So I only usually did deliveries on Sunday, but when I was doing pickup and people had to pick them up, they were picking them up from a courthouse. So I couldn't just have like watermelons laying around, because it's not like I could be with them the whole time. I mean, when you work in a judge's office, your office is very secured, so I couldn't keep them in my office. I couldn't keep running down and handing them to people. So there was having to be like in a publicly located place where people could just grab their bag and go, because they had already paid for them. Another thing, I'd made sure everybody you'd already paid for it before you're picking it up.
So we couldn't do big stuff that wouldn't fit in the bag. So watermelons weren't really an issue unless we grew some mini ones. Most pumpkins weren't really an issue. We could do some small butternuts and stuff here and there. So we were restricted. So there was some cabbages we grew that
just too heavy,
just wouldn't fit within the bag. So we were restricted size-wise a little bit. Something like those big Cushaw squash we grew, that wouldn't have worked. So we're restricted size-wise a little bit, and that's why those few years when we were doing that, we didn't grow a lot of watermelons or real big pumpkins or squash. Most everything was smaller, because that's what worked with the bags there.
I just want to say this real quick. There are some issues that we came up against that would, if you don't live way out in the country, you know, we sort of live way out here and people didn't want to drive to our house to pick up these bags. But we had to be real strict about pickup times and drop-off times because of the perishableness of items. They can only be out of the fridge for so long. But if you could invest in like a fridge, or if you talk to the local somebody who had like an open fridge for you to use as pickup, that would be awesome. And it would really help sort of open up your pickup times, your drop-off times, and not be so strict on only these days and these times.
Yeah, we never did it. We thought about like partnering with one of the local workout facilities, fitness centers or something like that, and using that as a pickup, but we never really got there. There was a lot of different things we probably could have, should have, would have done, but so that's our bag model. That's kind of the just overview of what we were doing. And then on the next couple videos, I want to get into the growing, the harvesting, and the washing part, because that is pretty time consuming.
Right.
What we did wash, what we didn't wash, why we grew certain things, what sold well, how I knew how much to grow.
Yeah, that's going to be all you, because that's a mystery.
All that kind of stuff. So we'll get in that in the next video, and then the third video we'll talk about more the marketing side of it, how we posted this stuff, how we sold it, you know, social media, the different avenues we use to get the word out there. And if there's any other aspects of it that you would like to know about, definitely put those in the comments below.
Yeah, we
and
can
we'll try to
address them.
add that to one of those next two videos, or maybe even create an own video about it. But the goal here is to show some of you guys out there that I know have some extra produce. Maybe you're interested in selling it. Maybe you don't feel like going and sitting in a farmer's market all Saturday. Maybe you have limited time like we do. There's still some good options out there how you can put together some produce, sell it locally to people who are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we're doing this video. We get this question a lot, and I hate that we had to stop doing it, and I think that there's so much potential for other people to run with it.
That's right.
So.
And I think this little model we're doing is not very complicated. Kind of anybody can do it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, like, and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Bye.
Oh, farewell. By the beauty of your life,